Hello everyone, welcome back to my 4-star academic YouTube channel. So this is our Dart programming for the beginner tutorial series. So in today's lesson, I will going to talk about the classes in Dart. So as you know, everything in Dart will be an object. So how can you initiate an object and how can you going to use it will be much important. And before we start, so if you haven't checked my previous tutorial, so I highly recommend go back to check my previous lesson and learn the basic knowledge about Dart. And if you like my video, please thumbs up my content. Also subscribe to my channel. I will keep uploading what I know and about and then I will keep uploading the knowledge about 4-star developer. 4-star. I will keep uploading the video about 4-star development. So either in web and the mobile. So without further ado, let's get started. As you can see from this mind map, and I already list out today's agenda. So we just follow those keywords, and I will give you a more understanding about what's classes and how you're going to use in Dart. And also I will cover all the syntax, how you can declare classes in Dart. And I have also prepared those file ahead, since I don't want waste your time just watching me like typing. So I hope I can talk more detail and give you more explanation about each line of code and what's the syntax and how going to what's the syntax trigger and what's some tips and advice. So let's keep going. So the first one I'm going to talk about is the concept of classes. So what's the classes? So in my opinion, so the classes are just a blueprint for the object. So suppose you are trying to build a new house, so you need your print, you need your blueprint. So the house you build will be an object. So, and each object will have its property and operation methods. So they together call members of the classes. So in Dart, so how can we going to declare classes? So we're using the class keyword. So as I mentioned here, and also followed by class keyword would be an identifier for the class. So remember, unlike the variable will declare and the method will declare, method name will declare, so it's not follow the camel case. So you must, the first letter must to be capital. So like example, so the person, the first P would be capital. And also every class you have its member, so which is the property and the method. So they are going to write inside this curly bracket, as you can see here. So first we're going to declare the instant variable, so which will be held by every object when you create this person object. So as you can see here, so the latest Dart is support non-safety, so you must initialize the variable before you're going to use it, right? So as you can see here, so Dart already support non-safety. So if you want if you want to declare a variable may have a value none, so you need to add this question mark after the data type. So here, so I'm going to talk you why I add this quotation mark in here. So first I declare a variable called name, and it's an instant variable belong to this person class. So you maybe have none value, and also I declare a gender as a string type. It may have also a non value. And the last, I declare an integer value called age and assign this a default value. So if you declare a variable and assign its value, so every like a person object you create will have the default value age is equal to 0, like this. So, and also you can declare the method. You see, you can declare the method. So just type the return type. You can also ignore the return type. So if you only have a single statement, so inside your method, you can either using this syntax. So this is just an arrow function, and this you will return this one. This is like a syntax, just a shortcut. And also you can also declare a method, and you pass a parameter, and you can access to your object using dollar sign, and along with your variable name you can access. So if you're trying to create an object using this blueprint, so how you're going to create? So this is a syntax. So you can use first you need to specify the data type. So in here we specify the data type will be the person, and we create using this. This would be called the constructor of this class. So you see we write this constructor. So this would be a default constructor. So if you didn't write down this line of code, the Dart will automatically write for you. So you see we call this constructor, so it will build this object for us. And so I think we know the type inference about the Dart. So we can also use the var keyword, and when you move your mouse on this variable, you can see the Dart is very smart, and they know we are going to declare a variable, and its type will be the person. And also we can just ignore this new keyword. Yeah, is the same as the first one. So after you declare a variable, so you can access to its property. So using the doc. So I assign the first person, and I giving the name would be my name, Razor, and I assign his gender would be male, and also its age would be 26. So I assign those value using doc, and then I can print out the value inside it. So let me comment now. So the underline code first. So I'm going to run my code so you can see my console. The console would be Razor male and 26. Yeah, it's exactly what I'm assigned to my first person object. And also we can call the method inside this class usually just by its name associated with my first person object, because everything my object have access to all the property inside here, so I can call it method just using the object dot eating object dot working, and pass the parameter need by this method, working method. So when I write this code again, you will see I print out Razor is eating and Razor is working on downtown. You see, just those two lines of code. And also, as I mentioned about the class, just a blueprint for the object. So you can create another object and assign different name and different gender, different age. So here I create a person. So I using this constructor, default constructor, and I assign its name to Sarah. So, and also I trying to create the third person and assign its name would be Lucy. So when I trying to, first I'm going to print out the second person's name and second person's gender and second person's age. So before I'm going to print it, so I know this one will be the value will be now and this one will be 0. Before we didn't because we didn't assign a second person gender, you see, and it is non-available. So it will be default will hold the value none as a default, and this one will hold the 0 as default. So when I print it, I will know. So the second person's name will be Sarah, and its gender will be none, and its age will be 0. So let's run out this code. Yeah, you see, it's the Sarah none and 0. Yeah, it's the same. So the last one, and I think will be print out the Lucy, and you'll see it's print the Lucy, right? So in this example, we create 3 differences object, and they hold their own property like name, gender, and age. And the class is just the blueprint. You can imagine this as just a factory. So you produce different product, the same product, and from a single factory. So after we briefly talking about how to use classes, so next one I'm going to talk about the type. So the classes will be divided to built-in classes and the user devices. So as you can see here, the person classes will be the user devices because it is written by me, and the built-in classes entire will be the something like this: set and map. So as I talked to you in previous video, the collection in Dart. So you can see we can create a list using new keyword. We can create set also using this new keyword, and you can also create this map. Yeah, you can ignore this new keyword because it's the same thing. It's just a shortcut. So after that, we are going to talk about another concept named constructor. So you already see here, this one is a default constructor, but you didn't know what's the constructor, so what it's used for. So I'll give you a more detail about the constructor. So I use the same example I wrote in the last classes .dart. So I use the same person classes, and you see this name, gender, and age. So as you can see here is a constructor. So it's called a generative constructor. It's not the default one because we explicitly write down the constructor by our own. So as you can see here, so I write this, and also another important stuff is that we can only write one generative constructor per class. So suppose I trying to write this default constructor, so the compiler will be give me an error, says the constructor will be already exist, right? You see that. So I can know like a declare to like a generative constructor. However, I can declare like multiple name constructor. So I will talk about name constructor later. So first I'm going to talk this generative constructor. So what's generative constructor? So it means when you create an object, so you can just pass its value, something like this. You can pass its name and gender and age. just after that, it kind of a similar the method. So you pass the parameter, and you will create this object with the same value. As you see, you pass the I pass the razor, so the razor will be assigned to the instant variable held by this first person object. So this keyword just point to the object itself. So in this case, so the first person, this will be point to the first person. So I assign first person's name to the razor, and first person's gender to male, and first person's age to 26. So it's he like this. So let me comment out the rest of the code and just run. You can see here I print out the razor male and 26. So it's much easier, you see, compared to the first example. In this one, we're using default constructor, so we need to write these 3 lines of code just to assign it is like property. However, if we're using constructor, so we can like ignore these 3 lines of code, just pass to the constructor as the parameter. Yeah, it's more easy and quick way. And however, there is a syntax sugar. So if you don't want to write this, you can. This one is a syntax sugar. So it probably do the same stuff as this one, but it's a more shortcut. And the next one we are going to talk is the name constructor. So the name constructor, for example, so because we only allowed to write a single generative constructor, so if we want pass like different parameter, when we create this object, we can using the name constructor. For example, so I create the person on this one using only name, so I only pass name, and also create a second name constructor is LDAL, so only pass the age. So when I creating the object, so I can only pass the name, as you can see here. So let me comment out those 3 lines of code. So I create a second person and only give it his name. So when I print it out, so you can see the only name will be assigned. Okay, so let me first comment out those 2 lines of code so you can see it more clear. So you see the Sarah none and 0. So because the second person I using a named constructor, so I only assign it is name. So the gender and age would be none and 0. So for the second person, I just call this is elder. So what actually it will do, it will assign this third person, the Lucy age would be like 20. So let me run out this code so you can see Lucy none and 20. Okay, so that's all for the generative constructor and name constructor. So the next one I'm going to talk about is the getter and setter. So the getter and set actually, you see this line of code, I have an underscore before this instant variable. So what underscore mean? The underscore just means you want to make this variable private, so other class cannot access to your own property. And how, but you can like it's called the concept of encapsulation. So you can expose the getter and setter to get this value, and the syntax is like this. So you're using the get keyword, and you rename this variable and return this, just the return statement. if it because it only like a single line of return statement, so you can like this one. And if so the orange one would be if you didn't like this one, you something like this, you return this one. Yeah, this one just more shortcut, so you can also declare using this format. But personal, I prefer using the first one, this one. And you can also declare the setter using set keyword, so you can set the variable and just passing the variable and set its name. So you make this one as private, so other class cannot access to this variable. They must access using the method you provide, the scatter and setter. So let's check it out. So first I make a person object. So as you know, we can like explicitly declare as a person object, or we can using this var keyword. Thanks to that, have a type inference, so you will automatically declare infer this person object for us. So I can get this person's name by using dot. So actually this will do, you will call this method, and this method will be return this value. So when I run this code, I will get none because we didn't assign any value to the name attribute. And so however, after this line 38, so we're using setter, you see, we're using setter to set this value to razor. So I'm using setter. This line, you will execute this line 18, you will set the underscore name to the razor to underscore name. So when I print it out, the value again, it will be razor, right? You see, we didn't using the underscore name, this instant variable, but we still get the name because we expose the getter and setter. Yeah, so we don't want other people to change like our private variable directly, so they can only change it by the method we provide to the outside. So we can do some logic check. So suppose the setter, we can write out the method properties like set a person's age. So we can write down some logic inside it, like for example, so I write another method like set age. So I will pass the integer value like age. So but I can, before I set this one, I can first check if the age would be greater than 0. So if it is greater than 0, then I will set this age to the age. Also, I need to write this keyword. So this keyword just means I assign who calls the object who trying to call this person's age. So it will be the first person. In this case, will be the first person because the first person we're trying to call this set person's age. So and else we'll just return. We'll just assign this to 0. Maybe, yeah, do something else. So we can make some like a logic check using this setter. So make our like program more safe, right? You cannot set person's age to a negative value. So if we didn't have this setter method, so anyone can set any value to our age, to our name, or to our gender. So I think this is a good concept about like encapsulation, and you can see this concept in different programming language. Okay, we move to next. So the next one I'm going to talk about is the inheritance. So for example, the inheritance. So inheritance is a relationship. So for example, so the car is a vehicle. So we can declare a vehicle. So, and also I make it the variable be private. So for this example, I using the syntax sugar. So I just assign the value to these two instance variable and simply just print out the detail. And also, like when you write the card classes, and you don't need to write the same stuff again. So you're just using the extend keyword, extend the vehicle. So means you already like this line of code means the car class inheritance of the vehicle. So you will get all the like no private attribute and method. So for example, you can call it is constructor, the father class constructor, this line of code using super keyword. So the super keyword are just the references of the parents object, right? So this line of code will call this line of code and assign the brand and capacity, right? And also this one is the first approach. You can create this car object. So for example, you create a car object, something like this. You give it a 3 parameter. First one is brand, and second one will be capacity, and second one will be the liters, right? So if I using the second approach, so you see in the second approach, I didn't using syntax sugar, so I just initialize this value in the constructor. So you see here. So in this way, when I declare a variable, the object, I just need to pass those two parameters. The first one would be brand, and the second one would be capacity, because I initialize the liters in the constructor. So either approach is fine, but my personal is preferred is first approach. Let me comment out. Also, you see the vehicle class have this print the detail method, and the car class also have this print detail like a details method, but it have this override keyword. So what its override means you override this method. So when I trying to call this print detail, it will only call the method I run here. So how you going? Because we say if we inheritance, we can get all the no private attributes and the operation method of the father class. So we will get this method. How we going to call it? We can just using this super keyword. So you see, we're using super keyword. I can call the father's print detail method, and using this keyword will point to myself. I can just call myself. This line of code will execute this method, and the 34 will also execute this one. So let me check. So you see, we print out this literal 80, right? Because this one is the car's print detail, and this one would be vehicles print detail. So you see the vehicles detail, and this one will be still this one. So whenever you want to try to use the father's property, so you can use like super keyword. Okay, so we move to next. So next I'm going to talk about is the like this equality check. So what's equality check? So here I give you a scenario. Suppose you're trying to implement like a to-do list. So you do not want to add like the same to-do list, right? So if we so first we build this to-do list class, and we give it the to-do name and the priority, and we have this generative constructor. So we declare these two variables. So first we're going to compare if those two are same, right? What's the differences between those two? The first one will compare it is hash code, and the second one will be compare if those two objects will be the same. So if you're trying to write this one, it will be return. This one will be return false, and this one will also be return false. So let's see. You see, we both return false, but you will say why they will return false. They have the same like attribute, same method, same attribute. So you don't want to add those like the same to do into your to-do list. So how you going to like differentiate based on it is like the name and also the priority. So you want to make if two to do have the same name and same priority, you will make it the same, right? So how are we going to do this? So the one we're going to do is we override this double equals operator. So we simply just compare to-do's name. If this to-do's name would be equals the object, another object, just like this. So the T1 dot to do would be equals T2 dot to do, and T1's priority would be equals to T2's priority. So after we run this code, we still need to rewrite our like hash code, right? Because this one will also use the hash code method. So after you rewrite those two methods, so you see when you're using this equal to equal sign, you'll print the true. Because I only compare its name as long as it is priority, right? Because those two objects have the same name and same priority. So when I using the two equal sign, it will be print out the true. However, they are not the same object, right? You see, they are different objects, but they have the same value. So if you're using identical, you are trying to compare two objects address, so you are not going to be a true because they are different objects. However, if you're trying to print something like T1 equals T1, you will be the true. You will be the true because it's the same object, right? So hope you'll get more understanding. So the last one I want going to talk is how you're going to write the singleton in the classes in the Dart. So we've been using singleton a lot because you want to like maintain the object. So you don't want to create like a multiple object and sometimes you have a situation need to create a single object. How you going to do this? As we learned before, this one will be the name constructor. Also, we have the underscore before it, so it will be the private constructor. So we have a static final keyword before this instant variable. The static means it will be shared across all the instance of the classes, right? So you create this object, so you will call this constructor, right? The constructor will return the singleton instance, right? the singleton instance will call this method. So it will be return this one, and it's a static final, so it will be shared among all the, like you see, so it will be shared across all the instances of the class. So when I trying to run this code, you will see they are identical. They are identical, and the value will be also true. So because they are the same object. So you will be encounter some like a situation you need to create a singleton object, or for example like the database object. So when we trying to use like Firebase, and you want to make it like a singleton, right? Okay, so that's all for today's lecture. So if you still have any like a question, so feel free to comment out in the comment below. So I will try my best to help you. And also thanks for watching this video. Okay, I will see you in next lesson.